everyone, and welcome to another edition of Poetry Tea Time with Read Poetry. My name is Danys Mares, and I work in book editorial at Andrews McMeel Publishing. I'm so excited to be hosting a few of AMP's new debut authors in conversation as part of Read Poetry's celebration of National Poetry Month. Today, we're talking all things inspiration and writing with poet and illustrator Suri Chan. Suri's debut collection of art and poetry, But I Don't Feel Empowered, hits bookstores this summer on May 21st, 2024. And we are so excited to give our Read Poetry followers a look behind the curtain as we chat with Suri about what inspired this beautiful and moving collection. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Suri, hi. Welcome to
Hi,
Poetry Tea
Gabby.
Time.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, we're so happy you're able to join us all the way from Melbourne, Australia.
I have my matcha tea here.
Oh, perfect. I have my iced matcha as well.
I
Cheers.
love that. Yeah, my dress is matching. I love that.
It does. It's very on theme. I love it. I actually have the same color here.
And the book.
And the book. We are so on theme today. I love it. All right, so let's just kick everything off. Can you tell us a little bit about But I Don't Feel Empowered?
Yeah, so in my lowest moments, I really needed someone to say, I hear you, your feelings are valid. But instead, the entire internet was like, you got to practice self-love, empower yourself. And I was like, but I don't feel empowered. Is it wrong to say that? I needed an alternative worldview because empowerment culture felt so unrealistic to me. So I poured all my feelings into this book and I gave myself permission to process my emotions without shame or judgment.
I love that. I think that a lot of women especially, but just
Yeah,
anybody can really relate to that. I think they call that what is it? Um
like toxic, positive,
yeah,
like messages.
yeah.
Yeah.
Toxic self-love in a way that for
Yay.
a
And
lot
I
of
feel like
people it just
it's something, yeah. I feel like it's something that women are really sort of like, that's something that women really face.
yeah, absolutely. It always comes back to that quote, it's okay not to be okay. But to like it's one thing to hear
Yeah,
it, it's another thing to like really internalize it and kind of work through that. And I think people will really relate to that in this book.
for sure.
Do you by chance remember what was the first poem that you wrote for this collection?
I do actually. It's called To the Men on the Street Who Shout Ni Hao. And when I first shared it on Instagram, so many Asian women were like, this is my experience, I relate. And that felt so nice to have like a niche experience be something that's shared with like the whole community. And my book has so many brand new poems that I will never share online, but it's also so good to illustrate some of the classics and like give them a home. And this particular poem is also the first poem I ever finished like in my life. So
Oh,
I shared it in a college class, and this girl came up to me to say, "You should write a book." And like, I did.
yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, I really want people to realize that it's okay to not feel empowered all the time. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. That just means that you're human.
Yeah,
And lastly, I want people not to feel ashamed for wanting things, whether that's like love or a massive career or whatever it is.
yeah,
And women should be really vocal about their desires because life is really too short to play it cool.
absolutely. You have to speak that into existence. I love it.
Yeah. Thanks.
One thing that I really loved about working, just for people watching, I was actually series editor on this collection, which is really fun. So Siri and I know each other very well at this point. One thing that I really loved about your collection is your use of art. Um, you're one
Thanks
of
so
the few,
much, Dan.
yeah, you're one of the few authors who not only writes their own poetry, but also illustrates their own work. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about what that process is like, how important is art to you and to your poetry?
Yeah, my writing is really visual, so I started drawing pictures and sharing them online, and like it somehow became my thing along the way. And yeah, my drawing placement is kind of based on what feels right, and I try to tell a story with the images if I can. So, for example, in my book, there's a poem about how my parents' house is a time capsule and a time machine, and there's a full page drawing of a house buried deep underground. Then at the end of the poem, there's a girl like sitting next to the grass, kind of looking underground. And that poem actually won a prize. So that's so cool.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love when poets incorporate their own art and illustrations into their work, I feel like it really elevates it to just like a whole nother level, and it just gives it another layer of meaning as well to be able to see um, what the poet was envisioning while writing their work. So I think that that's very cool that that's such a big part of your collection and just the way that you write in general.
Thanks so much, Dennis.
Yeah. So jumping off of that, let's talk a little bit about inspiration. I think that's one of just everybody's favorite thing to talk about. Like what
Yeah.
inspires you? What's your favorite thing to write about?
Yeah. So I like to write about like pain and heartbreak, to be honest. And
That
writing
sounds really
helps
great.
me And writing helps me cope with life. And I love writing about women's issues because I'm a big feminist. And most of my best ideas actually pop into my head randomly. So I could be just, going for a walk, or I could be taking a shower. And then the idea just like hits me like that, and I just go with the flow. And yeah, when I was 18, I read Rupi Kaur's Milk and Honey, and that collection really made me want to write poetry. Her work like really, really spoke to me, especially as like another young Asian immigrant woman. And it just felt so inspiring to see someone like me making such a mark on the poetry world. And
Mhm.
it's so cool that like we have the same publisher now. Like it's crazy. Yeah.
I love that. That's so funny. I think that's a connection you and I have as well. Rupi, for a lot of women our age, was like with the
Yeah.
first women that I saw that was like my age out there writing, making a name for herself. Um,
Yeah.
I remember when Milk and Honey debuted, I sat and I read the entire book in one sitting.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
to, 10 years
Yeah.
later, for both of us to be
Yeah.
here is very cool. So shout out to
Yeah,
Rupi.
that's so amazing. It's like the time Rupi tied us together in a way. That's really cool.
I love
I
that.
love that. Yeah,
The power of poetry, the power of writing, just in general, and
yeah,
just having the courage to put your voice out there because you never know who
yeah, for
needs
sure.
that
Yeah.
inspiration.
And it's also like the power of like seeing someone you can relate to,
Mhm.
just put up on a big stage, and that's just so inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So speaking of favorite poems and poetry, do you have a piece of work that you kind of go back to whenever you just need to feel inspired, something that just always sparks something in you? Do you have a piece like that?
I do actually. I actually have many. I have many pieces like that, but one that comes to mind is this poem by Olivia Gatwood, and it's a poem about how the world looks down on teen girls. Yet Olivia says we're all teen girls in a way because we all have big insecurities and we all have big emotions that manifest in different ways. And I'm personally so in awe of teen girls because honestly, they've created most of our trends, and even most of our slang words were started by teen girls, but the world doesn't really kind of talk about the power that teen girls have. And I wish the world actually showcased that more because teen girls, like honestly, like they are like the future, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, and I totally agree. I think we saw a little bit of that last year with Barbie and the
Yeah, yeah,
Love in the Eras tour and
yeah,
Beyonce, just encouraging
yeah, it's
girls
amazing.
and women to just tap back into that teenage girl that, didn't get the love that she needed and
Yeah,
support that we all needed. So I think that that's really
for sure.
beautiful.
Yeah. And I love how like so many people were like ashamed of wearing pink because we're seen as like, like too girly. And then like, last year was just this full like
Explosion
pink
of
kind
pink.
of yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah.
I
Love
love it.
that.
I love it. Yeah, I know I was one of those people, but I'm getting back to my pink roots.
I love that.
All right, so let's get into some tips. I know we have a lot of writers that are tuning in. They visit Read Poetry to get inspired, but also to hear what other poets and other writers, what their process is like. So do you have any tips for new poets, new writers?
Yeah, I do actually. I would say if you're like just starting out, read a lot and write a lot and just don't be afraid to be cringe. That's honestly how you grow. Because I look back at like my past work from like, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and I cringe, but I feel like that's part of the process because
Yeah.
I'm growing. So yeah, that's important. And also, don't share your work with your friends and your family because they'll make you self-conscious even if they're nice.
Mm,
And
yeah.
honestly, people will always be a little biased. So it's really important for new poets to put their work online, grow an audience who actually cares. And like for any new poets watching this, like don't be afraid of being seen.
Yeah. I love that. And I
Thanks.
totally resonate with don't be afraid to be cringe. I read some of the old
Yeah, yeah.
stuff that I wrote and I'm like, oh my gosh. But I'm like, you have to write that to get better. You can't be
Exactly,
afraid to
yeah.
just put it
I
on
have that all
paper.
the time. Exactly, yeah.
And what about writers struggling with writer's block, the infamous writer's block?
Yeah, I have that a lot.
Don't we all?
Yeah, yeah, we do. So I would say go outside and take a really long walk,
Mm,
take a shower, and just clear your mind because my best ideas come to me when my mind is free to wander. And honestly, the best cure for writer's block is to like stop thinking about writing and just
yeah,
do something else.
yeah, that's great. And it's hard to do it. Take a walk.
Yeah, take a walk. And it's funny because it's so simple. It's so simple, but
It's
yet
so
we don't
simple,
really
yeah.
do it. Because I need to be reminded to do that. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
funny.
And what would you say is your best piece of writing advice that you've ever received as a writer?
I would say it's so cliche, but write what you know.
Hmm.
It's so true because your best writing comes from genuine emotions, which come from real lived experiences. And
Yeah,
so many people are scared to write what they know because they think their lived experiences are boring. But literally, everyone's lived experiences are valuable. And I'm really serious about that. Everyone has like a valuable experience, even if you've never moved out of your parents' house and you feel like you don't have enough life experience because every experience in the world is like so valuable, honestly, because there's someone who's always going to be like, oh, I relate to that, I see that, and this is me.
yeah, I love that. I think that's so true and so honest, and people recognize that. And I think that that's really what people and readers gravitate to when they see that
Yeah, yeah,
authenticity and that
yeah,
honesty.
yeah,
So yeah, I think
yeah,
that's a little cliche, but they're cliches
yeah,
because
but
they work. Well, it's been so great chatting, Suri, but before we let you go, I know that you've chosen a piece from your book to share with us today. Can you tell us a little bit about it before you read it for us?
yeah. So this one is called I Am Not Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it's like a poem on like female safety and like just feeling scared to walk home at night and how this is kind of such a women's issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll start reading. So I'm gonna read a section from the poem. If you want to read the whole poem, you have to like get the book. But
Gotta
like
buy the
yeah, this is so this is just a section of it. Okay, so I'm gonna start. Okay. On TV, bad people turn out to be demons, defeated with a spell or a kick. The demons in real life always turn out to be people. A clingy ex, a shadowy man walking a little too close. They say the scariest part of Buffy was when she faced those skeletal figures with metallic teeth. I think the scariest part was the episode where she loses her powers and has to walk home alone. So
Um,
yeah, that's the section that I read today.
yeah, I love that. That's so
Thank you.
very powerful, and I think a universal experience, unfortunately, for most women,
Yeah.
that fear is real. And that's a really
Yeah.
good way to capture it. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
Yeah. And that is all the time that we have for today. But thank you so much, Siri, for spending some time with us and for telling us a little bit more about But I Don't Feel Empowered. So excited for this one to hit the stands on May 21st, 2024. It's your debut collection, which is really exciting. Congratulations. That's awesome. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Dennis.